So today we're going to talk about Wangari Maathai. She was this incredible woman who understood something that, most people just didn't see. She saw that peace and democracy and a healthy planet weren't separate things at all. They were completely tangled up together. Her story isn't just about planting trees, not by a long shot. It's about planting the actual seeds of a better future. So let's get into it.
To really get a sense of her impact, you have to understand the kinds of barriers she was just shattering. In 1971, she became the first woman in all of East and Central Africa to get a doctorate. I mean, that alone is an unbelievable achievement. But for her, she was just getting warmed up.
Then, fast forward to 2004, and she wins the Nobel Peace Prize. Now think about that. This wasn't for ending a war or signing some treaty. No, she won it for her work in conservation. This was a totally revolutionary idea, right? It forever connected the act of saving the environment with the cause of peace. And on top of all that, with that single award, she also became the first African woman to ever be named a Nobel laureate, a total trailblazer. But to understand how she got there, we have to go way back to her beginnings, in a place that's very, very far from the world stage. So, how did she become this global icon? Well, her story starts in a small village in rural Kenya, but a pretty extraordinary educational journey gave her a perspective that would end up changing not just her own country, but how the entire world thinks about what peace really is. Her path was just remarkable. She was selected for the Kennedy Airlift program, which brought her all the way to America for school. And it was in a place you might not expect, Pittsburgh, that she had this light bulb moment. She saw a city that had been choked by pollution actually working to clean its air and water. And that planted this powerful idea in her head. Environmental damage doesn't have to be a life sentence. People can actually heal their world. So when she got back to Kenya, she started talking to women in the rural communities, just listening. And she heard the same stories over and over. Streams were drying up. They had to walk farther and farther every day just to find firewood. The soil was so poor they couldn't grow enough food. And that's when it all clicked for her. Deforestation wasn't just some abstract ecological issue. It was the root cause of poverty, of hunger, and even of conflict. And this powerful realization gave birth to her most famous creation, the Greenbelt movement. It started with such a simple idea, but its impact would be felt around the world. So she founded the movement in 1977, and the mission was crystal clear: give ordinary people the power to heal their own land. And here's the crucial part. She focused on rural women, the very people who were hit hardest by all this environmental damage. You see, this was never just about conservation. It was a radical way of promoting women's rights and giving them a way to support themselves. Her model was just genius, pure genius in its simplicity. This wasn't some charity handout. First, she gave them knowledge, teaching them how to grow their own native seedlings. Second, she gave them a direct economic reason to do it, a small payment for every single tree that survived. And third, that one simple action solved so many problems at once. The new trees gave them firewood, they protected the water sources, and they held the soil in place. It was a holistic solution that tackled poverty and environmental decay at the exact same time. But, as you can probably guess, when you start empowering people and protecting land, you inevitably run into trouble with people in power, people who see that land as nothing more than a source of profit. And this conflict led to the most famous and maybe the most dangerous fight of her life. Her own words really capture what was at stake here. In 1989, the government announced plans to build this gigantic skyscraper right in the middle of Uhuru Park, which is like Nairobi's Central Park. For Maathai, this was not just about saving some trees. No, this was a fight for the public's right to exist, for the very soul of the city. The battle lines were drawn pretty clearly. On one side, you had Maathai fighting for this precious public space. On the other, you had the full, brute force of President Daniel Arap Moi's authoritarian government. And his response, well, it was ugly. He publicly mocked her, using these awful misogynistic attacks. He told her to just be a proper woman and shut up. But she refused to be quiet. And it didn't stop with insults. The government's campaign against her was terrifying. They kicked the Greenbelt movement out of its offices. They arrested her again and again and again. During a peaceful hunger strike, she was beaten unconscious by the police. Her name even showed up on an assassination list. Let's be clear, the risks she was taking were a matter of life and death. But even with all this pressure and very real danger at home, her story, her courage, and her vision were starting to get noticed on the world stage. And that attention would eventually lead to the highest honor imaginable. This picture, it just captures her spirit, doesn't it? She never stopped fighting. She was an activist through and through, using any platform she could find to talk about her vision of a world where the environment, democracy, and peace were all connected, and the world was finally starting to listen. Look, her Nobel win in 2004 was a game changer. It completely redefined what peace could mean. Of course, it was a huge historic first for an African woman. But the really profound thing, it was the first time an environmentalist had ever won. The Nobel Committee's own words said it all. They gave her the prize for her contribution to sustainable development, democracy, and peace, finally validating the very thing she'd been saying for decades. They're all connected. And what about back home? Well, the same government that had once called her a madwoman was finally voted out. And in the country's first truly free elections in decades, Wangari Maathai decided to run for parliament. And the result? It was an absolute landslide. She won with 98% of the vote. The people she had fought for, the people she had risked her life for, they gave her their overwhelming support. Maathai passed away in 2011, but her work just continues to grow. And I mean that quite literally. She's inspired a whole new generation to see the world the way she did, as one big, beautiful, interconnected system. And her legacy really comes full circle here. This memorial is at the University of Pittsburgh, the exact same place where she first saw that environmental restoration was possible all those years ago. And that single maple tree at the center, it's just the perfect symbol for her life's work, isn't it? It's proof that one small seed, one person, one idea can literally change the world. What Wangari Maathai proved to all of us is that the solutions to some of our biggest, scariest problems can often be found in something as simple as the soil right beneath our feet. And her incredible life leaves us with a really important question. If peace can be grown, what seeds will we choose to plant?